Hey everyone, I want to talk about trauma and why identifying with trauma can be so problematic. And this isn't just trauma, by the way. This is ADHD, neurodivergent, OCD, anything in your life that you have to open up and talk about all the time. You know, I always use the example when I talk about trauma. I was at a business meeting 2-3 years ago, and I remember someone there raised their hand and basically was like, just so you know, I'm a trauma survivor. And I just thought, man, this person's got a really bad mental health headspace, because it has nothing to do with, we tell people, we're not trying to distinguish whether your trauma happened or not. That's not what we're saying. We acknowledge hardships in life. But the problem is the world today is so gung-ho about putting labels and slapping them on. You ever seen like a military general? They have all the badges. Well, that's like OCD, PTSD, GAD, panic disorder, neurodivergent, trauma. And, you know, that is a problem because you don't realize what you're doing is you're attaching the event to your personhood, which is the actual opposite of acceptance doesn't mean agreement. So before I go any further, please subscribe, hit that like button down below. Let me know what you think about this topic. This is a very important topic. It keeps many people stuck. This is for anyone that identifies with something that has happened to them in their lives. And remember too, there's a couple things that are unfortunate. Trauma has been very much watered down. Like gaslighting and the term narcissist, they don't have any meaning anymore. You know, you hear people say, well, my dad called me fat and I went through trauma. That's very hard when you compare that. And it's not about comparative suffering, but how you compare that to someone who watched all their friends be murdered in front of them on Normandy Beach in World War II. We're not diminishing the long-term consequences from your current belief systems wrapped up in the event. Key word, your current belief systems. That shouldn't happen. This is the worst thing ever. But this is a very, very big problem and throws us pretty much directly into the victimhood mentality, which is very easy and understandable to fall into. So look for that direct message below with Phil. That feature's been great. People have been loving with that. We have people coming in like crazy. We really do try to put out more content than anyone. I know I do. My content production has been pretty consistent for about 3 years now. I love it. It gives me great personal meaning to help OCD sufferers through my experiences. And we have those webinars at 8:30 p.m. UK times. They're a blast. You know, a lot of the mods coming up, they're growing in size. Like I said in a couple of my other videos, the one on Tuesday from last week, Fear was 80 people. So that was a lot of fun. So the number one most important thing to remember about trauma, as I said in the beginning, we're not dismissing things that have happened to you in your life. And people have gone through all sorts of tragedies and horrific events. We're just teaching you to distance yourself from the identification process of the badge of honor. That's where people get into trouble, etc. So what are things in my life that I could have deemed as trauma? Okay, but I don't. My OCD suffering in general, I would say not. Unless you have chronic OCD, it's putting you in the top 1% of traumatic experiences on the planet, bar none, because it's a constant torture in the mental space. So that would be up there. I don't consider that traumatic. My father basically died in front of me of pancreatic cancer. I was with him 6-7 hours before he died. I think he died at 2 a.m. I was with him at 6 p.m. He died a really horrific death of pancreatic cancer. Anyone that knows how that goes. Mental hospital, definitely don't consider that traumatic. Let's see what else. The way I was raised, and this is not many people who were raised like this. My mother, who I love dearly, was raised by two alcoholics at the time, unfortunate, in Brooklyn in the 60s and 70s. She had a tough upbringing, like many people in the 60s and 70s. My great aunt, so my mom's mother's sister, was telling me about how her husband, my uncle, who died 20 years ago now, used to beat her. And when I asked her, how did this happen, her exact response, literally, I still could see it. We were sitting in a gas station drinking coffee, and there was like little like brown coffee, plasticky paper cups from upstate New York. Anyone that's from up there is going to know exactly what I'm talking about, from ExxonMobil. And she said, Nicholas, that's what everyone got beat in the 50s and 60s. It was such a state of acceptance that I could not even believe that those words came out of her mouth that freely. And she loved my uncle. My uncle had a stroke and was in the home for, I believe, 11 years. My grandma said she saw him every single day for 11 years without missing one day. Maybe one of those 11 years. I mean, my grandma said it was like clockwork. So my Aunt Gina, I don't hear her talk about that in the traumatic experience. Again, this is I'm not justifying domestic violence, because this is what happens. You go, well, you're saying that's okay. That's not what we're saying. We're just looking at the realities of life. What we consider traumatic today is not considered trauma 30 years ago or 100 years ago. That doesn't make it right or wrong. As a society, we're progressing at all times in belief systems and philosophies and integration with technology. So things are always kind of morphing and shape-shifting. And as that famous quote goes, the only thing constant is change. So I'm just giving you a background. I don't consider any of those things traumatic, because if I did, it would give OCD and my mental health disorder the upper hand, which isn't a necessity for me. I accept those realities in my life, but I don't give them the extra bit that they're looking for. And I think that's key. Now, how you break down this is to really stop using the word trauma. As I always, again, I understand how difficult this is for people. People have gone through really, really tough events. Again, I have to continuously say, we're not dismissing it, whatever happened to you in your life. We're trying to shift your belief systems to stop identifying with the word trauma. So the first thing is you got to stop using the word. It's almost like a negativity. If you're talking about, this is the worst thing ever, I hate my life over and over and over again, it's hard to be enthusiastic and positive. You know, and that's not the only important thing in life, but it's the reality. So if you're saying those words all the time, like I got my big coffee just sitting here. So if you're saying the word trauma all the time, you're subconsciously, sorry about that. You are subconsciously adding, I think I got like a piece of one of those. Don't you love what they do too? They fill it up like Starbucks. If you're listening, I know what you do. I get this a large, you get a medium. You guys like fill it up with this much ice. It's probably this. I'm going to buy two of them, a medium and a large, dump them into the same thing and show people why it's the same amount of liquid and you're paying like 97 cents more for nothing. Anyway, so that's hilarious. So we have them detached from the word trauma, right? And we have them start using maybe unfortunate event. I get hit with this all the time. That's semantics and it doesn't matter. It does. It matters a lot because you don't identify with unfortunate events. You're identifying with the word trauma. You don't hear someone go, I'm an unfortunate event survivor. They go, I'm a trauma survivor. You don't hear people say, I'm a fear genetic warrior. They say I'm an OCD warrior. That would sound weird too. Fear genetic warrior. I'm going with that. I'm going to get that on a shirt. That's going to be the real shirt. But again, subconsciously identification, you don't even realize it's happening. Over and over, your beliefs are being shaped. Then you have to look at the event, accept the realities of what happened in time. This is a long-term perspective, while changing the behaviors that are associated. Behaviors, always talking about the word trauma. And I tell people, if you look at very calm, rational individuals with open-minded belief systems, those people don't usually use the word trauma. Again, these are hard realities. There's a lot of tough love in this video. If you look at the individuals on the internet who use the word trauma or like they identify with that over and over again, they're not really people that handle stress very well. It's not that they couldn't train themselves to. It's just right now their low frustration tolerance tends to be kind of low because of that self-identification mechanisms with all these little compulsive subtle behaviors that they do. Avoidance behaviors. You got to stop avoiding things that were involved. So if someone has a trauma, per se, with a past relationship, maybe it's a female that had a traumatic, maybe even violent relationship, and they go, I'm never going to date again. Understandable, but you're setting yourself up for failure. If you were involved in a really tough situation, and again, I can only understand how difficult this would be. Maybe you had a really traumatic injury doing a sport, and you can go back. Maybe you just broke your leg in half, right? But, and you can go back and ski one day or snowboard one day or hike. Going back is probably very important from a belief system perspective. Same thing with plane phobias. Most people, once an event has happened to them that they deem as traumatic, this is the problem. The event arena, wherever that took place and all the moving factors around it, is avoided, which then substantiates your belief system, keeps you saying trauma over and over and over again, and then keeps you in that trauma loop, which is a problem. So, and then this book right here. That book is very important to break down beliefs. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think. Again, this is something that holds a lot of people back. I have every reason, I don't use that as a bragging right. I have every reason to talk about being a trauma survivor because of all the mental health stuff I went through. There's just no need for it. I just am a person with a genetic disorder that isn't the best. But I can make peace with that and learn and recover and do all the things I have. So thank you again. Look for the WhatsApp link down below. Really think about some of the stuff I said in this video. Keep us posted. We'll definitely be doing a webinar sometime in the future on this. And I'll let you know more about that conference as we build it into this year, and we'll go from there. Have a good one, everyone.